This morning we'll be doing our first Instagram live here on S Location. We're just waiting for Umo Oil's founder, Shrenkla Holicek, to be joining us. Good morning.
Carrie.
Oh,
Hi, good morning.
I need to shift things a little bit here. There we go.
And I should do the same. Here we go. I do apologize. I'm going to move just a little bit because the
That's
light's
okay.
not that great.
No, I know. I played with that a little bit this morning. It's not the nicest of days out, so unfortunately, dealing with the cloudy weather.
Same for Los Angeles. It's like the weather gods want to keep us inside.
Oh, really? See, we had actually some of the nicest weather that we've ever had in spring, just the last couple of weeks. And then today, of course, it turned.
Oh, indeed. Isn't that how it goes? But no, not so much in LA. We usually have rainier Feb, Jan, not so much April, but it's been cloudy. I want to say 90% of April.
Okay, wow. So it helps though.
It does. It does. It is, like I said, the universe is conspiring to keep us indoors.
Well, given that you're, discussing already quarantine, is there anything that you actually are doing that you've noticed is helping with either your mental clarity or your overall physical health?
And I should start by saying that it didn't come altogether naturally. So the struggle or the ramp time to adjust to the new normal, I think, is something that we all must acknowledge as a truth and be okay with that. Because I want to say, Carrie, the first couple of weeks that this presented itself, I felt incredibly lost, and I still feel a little bit anxious about the topic because there is a lot of unknown out there. And the first thing I think that I had to wrangle with was the idea of a routine or structure that had just filled my days being taken away from me. And that void is very interesting to become at peace with.
And it does take time.
It absolutely does. And it forces a consideration of your circumstances in a big way. So I think after it hit me, and this is now our 6th or 7th week in quarantine here in Los Angeles, I think I started to unpack the discomfort. And I want to say the first few weeks were very much spent unpacking and acknowledging that, no matter how uncomfortable it felt. And in Ayurveda, and this is funny because I often find myself caveating much of what I share within Ayurveda, saying that, hey, this might feel difficult because I have difficulty practicing it, having been an Ayurvedic practitioner for
some time.
Years. Exactly. And acknowledging and releasing feelings is very, very difficult.
So for people who don't know, maybe if you can give us a summary on Ayurveda and what that entails.
Yes, that would be a great place to start. So Ayurveda is about a 5,000-year-old science of medicine, lifestyle, beauty. Basically, it's an all-encompassing guidance on how to best live your life within your body while acknowledging the environment that surrounds you and thrive. And Ayurvedic guidance has been the predominant system of medicine and health and wellness in India for 5,000 years. And it offers very valuable insight into what time you should wake up, so lifestyle, exercises, meditation. So yoga and pranayama, which is a lot of breathing meditation, basically finds its roots in Ayurveda dating back many thousand years.
So it really affects your entire life.
It really does. And it will give you guidance on what to eat, when to eat, what water to drink, what temperature water to drink. And emotional release is a big part of that guidance. that has been my personal North Star, at least for the last 3 or 4 weeks,
Okay.
in managing this
Huge
anxiety.
shift.
New shift, exactly. And it's been, I've done it 3 or 4 different ways. One is sort of just verbalizing what I feel, whether it is to myself or my husband or to my parents in a conversation, which is new in the absence of just letting the mundane conversation of the day. Oh, today I had this meeting, or today I was in New York doing this. I've been forced to acknowledge and verbalize what I felt during that day. A second thing I've been doing more of is journaling.
Okay. Which I've noticed actually a large amount of people have actually started that maybe weren't utilizing that as a tool before. We've been talking about that even internally, the benefits of journaling as an outlet.
And it's difficult, but it is powerful because it forces you to wrangle and release. So I have the most notoriously difficult time with meditation. The only kind of meditation that I can do is either breathing meditation, as I talked about in pranayama, or something called transcendental meditation, which is mantra driven kind of meditation where there is less of sort of that free form thinking. But I have been trying to do a little bit more of the free form thinking meditation because I'm finding it necessary. So those are 3 things that I am going back to in this time. I'd love to hear what you have felt like similarly as the owner of a business. And
it is stressful. It is very stressful, especially given that the future is so unknown. For us at Secret Location, my priority was first and foremost to take care of my staff. So we, within the first 2 to 3 days of understanding that we were being shut down, was going through and understanding what kind of hygiene protocols needed to be in place, both for myself and them personally outside of work and within work. And then, of course, making sure that everybody had the tools necessary to be able to do their job to the best of their ability, given the circumstance. So that has been my first priority. It is a challenge given that the future is ultimately a big question mark. It is a big unknown. I have to say that I also struggle with meditation. I'm not talented there, but I've also been incorporating that into my daily routine. It's been part of my mornings, and I have found that to be very grounding. And I utilize it probably 2 to 3 times throughout the day. Not long, just 3 to 5 minutes, even if I can manage it, just to feel a little bit more grounded, to have some clarity with moving forward with whatever that day brings.
Something I am reminded of, especially as someone who has difficulty with traditional meditation. Obviously, I mentioned transcendental meditation, but that does require a little bit of training, for lack of a better word, in that you meet with a spiritual guru to actually get your mantra. But 3 breathing meditations that I have found very powerful during this time, and I use them in 3 to 5 breath work intervals, or maybe even 3 minutes at a time. When I'm feeling very anxious, I practice alternate nostril breathing.
Oh, okay.
Which is, again, all 3 come from Ayurveda and pranayama. This is around anxiety and maybe inability to fall asleep because of anxiety. What you do is start with closing one of your nostrils and inhaling from the other.
Okay.
Then you close
exhale through the other.
Exactly. Exhale from the other, and then inhale back in from the nostril that you just exhaled from, while keeping the other one closed.
Okay. And you've noticed this is definitely helpful when it comes to anxiety and if you're
sleep,
struggling with
especially.
Sleep.
It sort of channels energy within the brain to help manage the excess adrenaline that is often flowing through your system when you're feeling anxiety.
Okay.
So that's one. The second thing is around frustration and anger,
Mm-hmm.
which I
I
sometimes
think everyone is feeling.
because you don't have very much control over the
No.
circumstances, and small things can set you off.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the new, living arrangements. Most people aren't used to spending every day, 24/7 with their roommates, their partners, or if they're alone, even in that situation, they're not used to that. So, even myself, I've never spent this long in my own apartment. And you start to notice things that bother you, or different ways that you have to even schedule. I also am married, and even scheduling calls and things like that to ensure that we're not interrupting one another and that both of us can focus. You're not used to comparing your schedule with someone else.
Completely. And, I read something funny at the start of the quarantine that the way to manage this is to come up with like a third imaginary office mate who leaves dishes in the sink and so on. But there is a lot of frustration that comes up. And I find that when I'm having a moment, practicing Shitali Pranayama or a cooling breath is very, very helpful. So to do that, basically, and anybody who has the ability to do that, I'd encourage them to sort of do it right now to see just how quickly your body cools down with this breath, where you inhale through your nostrils, but exhale through sort of a curled tongue. So you sort of do that and exhale through that slowly. I'll do a couple of breaths like that.
Okay. That's not what I was anticipating.
It's called a cooling breath or Shitali Pranayama. It's very, very powerful. In the past, I've found myself doing it in LA traffic, or when I'm grounded on a tarmac for hours on and getting delayed in meetings. But it is a very profound technique to bring you back into the body and cool it down.
Okay.
So inhaling.
Okay.
Again, for each of these breaths, I recommend anything between 10 and 20 repetitions.
Okay.
And the final one I will share is something called Bhastrika, which is the breath of fire.
Can you repeat that?
It's called Bhastrika, Bhastrika.
Okay.
It's an Ayurvedic Sanskrit word. And this basically helps energize or focus you. At a time that you might feel energy levels dwindling, or just feeling lethargic, again, being indoors is forcing us into these body patterns that are very unique and new.
And the lack of fresh air, I think, also has a huge effect.
All of the above, especially, being indoors and lack of stimulation that ordinarily guided creativity, ordinarily guided natural energy. Also, some of us draw our energy from our colleagues. The Myers-Briggs protocol, that is an E. I am an E. That constant conversation gives you ideas and focus and energy, whereas now that is gone. So when I am especially feeling a little bit lethargic or in a creative slump, exhale in short breaths, which is I know it looks funny and it takes just a little.
No, I've actually practiced this one in yoga before, so.
And it's highly energizing. So it's funny, like immediately I'm feeling, even after doing like 6 breaths, I'm feeling this heady rush of energy. And I do these 20 spurts at a time, then inhale again, another 20, and about 3 to 5 spurts gives me so much energy. And especially if I'm setting up for even like an evening yoga practice and I'm just not feeling it, I will do this and it'll just energize me and give me the energy to take me through those. So I'm relying a lot on these breath work / pranayama techniques to find motivation to do the things.
What is something that you would say are maybe 5 keys that you utilize to ensure that you're looking your healthiest on the outside as well as feeling it on the inside?
For me, it would be a combination of some of the things I just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And I will probably start with sleep. I think that is the thing that shows up first and foremost, both in my emotional life, in
Mm-hmm.
how I present either as a leader or a spouse, and my productivity, as well as my skin. If I'm not sleeping well, that would be the first place it would show.
Okay.
And I use a combination of rituals that have both to do with skincare,
Mm-hmm.
as well as wellness, to ensure I get better sleep. Because at this point, I rely a lot on foot massages, body massages, and facial massages to trigger to my brain.
Well, I'm not sure if you're finding this situation to be true as well. I'm noticing that because I'm inside so much and not having, it's not that I'm, the type of person that lays out in the sun, but I'm sure most people are experiencing this. Given that you're inside so much, given that you're lacking fresh air, that natural vitamin D, I'm losing that luminosity, and my skin is actually reacting differently than, should it I guess you could say, the day-to-day previously. So I've had to tweak, and I'm slowly going through tweaking my routine to try and find that perfect combination to make sure that I have that same kind of luminosity that I did previously.
And I think you're touching on something that is impacting me in a different way, and a lot of our clients in a different way, which is the idea of needing to exfoliate more. And it is showing up in one of two ways. One that you just mentioned, a little bit lower luminosity.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, a lot of us are breaking out more.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also has a little bit to do with stress, maybe eating more processed foods in this unique environment we're in. But the answer to both those things is better exfoliation.
Okay.
And there are many, many ways you can exfoliate. I actually use a hot, fresh washcloth every time that I actually shower. Sometimes I don't even use a product, especially in the morning. I will just take a warm washcloth. I may have a little bit of honey on my skin that I'll put on as I'm brushing my teeth. I step into the shower, let the steam go to work, and then remove that. Even that can be very vitally exfoliating. And then add a lot of humectants to your skin that can be both anti-inflammatory as well as give you that burst of greater water retention in your skin. But
which I have to say is a great tip, because that's something most people already have, in their kitchen.
I find that,
utilize.
and that's Ayurveda. A lot of our recipes come from kitchen ingredients. It is, at the end of the day, kitchen pharmacy, if you will. But a secondary thing I do is more of a physical exfoliant. For me, I've always used things like oat powders, nut powders, a lot of muds, stuff that you find in all of our cleanser and gommage exfoliants, like the deeply clarifying, which has neem and charcoal, or anti-aging,
which is one of the most beautiful masks, I have to say.
Thank you.
It's one of the only ones I personally experienced, other than being in a professional, like having a professionally done facial, where you rinse it off and you can see the difference immediately.
And I like calling these out, because our masking and exfoliating products are probably the ones you see the fastest results with. And because there is, I think, a misconception that that natural products cannot have the impact that chemical synthetic products do. But they can. It's just about identifying the right ones. And many of them in the West have not made their way in, because a lot of people don't use natural products the way we do back east in India, because we've used only natural products for so long. So we've identified the ones that really, really work and pop. But I am finding that I'm exfoliating and masking a lot more. in these cycles, because either from stress or from maybe sleeping in a little bit more, etc., my skin is building up more. So I'm using masking and exfoliating as ways to sort of resurface and see more luminosity, as well as keep any buildup that causes acne at bay.
So given that you mentioned oat powder as well as honey, that's something that you could actually even create yourself. You could blend oats to create an oat powder, to do so finely, and then add in, of course, the honey that you have in your kitchen to create your own mask.
Absolutely. And a few things I might add in is turmeric.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that available, and if you're very dry, you might throw in a little bit of banana or avocado.
Oh, I never considered banana.
They're very, very hydrating to the skin.
Okay.
So that would make for an excellent mask. If you want to add a little bit of higher exfoliation, throw in maybe some sugar, a little bit of yogurt if you want to do a little bit of a probiotic mix. But all of these things can be made from with stuff that's just right in your kitchen. I love apple cider vinegar as well as lemon juice to bring in some vitamin C. So you play around with these ingredients. They're fantastic for getting a 10-minute face mask every other day.
Those are fantastic tips. One other question that we had was a question in regards to the blemish oil, because it being for blemishes and it being an oil, a lot of people were very skeptical and a little bit uneasy about utilizing that on a blemish. Can you speak to how it works?
Yes. So I want to start with saying that the dated knowledge around oils being bad for the skin is slowly but surely making its way out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wrong to think that oily, blemish-prone skin does well by stripping it of all its oils. That is just completely dated wisdom, because here's the thing: the body does not work in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
It's a living, intelligent being. As you are starving it of something,
mm-hmm.
it tries to compensate by overproducing that. And oils exist in the skin for a reason. They exist to protect the skin from moisture loss. They are an important vital barrier that prevent bacterial infections. They're the ones that add firmness and collagen to the skin.
Mm-hmm.
So stripping them overly actually deprives the skin of its natural barrier, as well as triggers overproduction of oil. So I want to start by saying that that is just bad information.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that doesn't mean that every oil will do well for your skin, because that's when the concept of comedogenic comes in. Comedogenic basically is the word that means how likely is an oil to clog your skin.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't
mean, as we were speaking about coconut oil.
Exactly. So not everyone will get clogged with coconut oil, but the chances that you will are much higher with something that is higher on the comedogenicity scale. So I love, let's say, rosehip and avocado as oils, but they're not a 0
mm-hmm.
on the comedogenicity scale. So they're a 1 to 2, and some skins tolerate them very well. Like my
mm-hmm.
skin can pretty much tolerate them, but others can't. However, all the oils in our skincare portfolio are a 0 on the comedogenicity scale, which means that A, they just scientifically cannot clog pores. They are non-comedogenic. B, the right oils can help manage bacteria around acne. My favorites are clove and tea tree. Second, they can actually help break down sticky sebum. Grapeseed is one such oil. It has a high quantity of something called linoleic acid. Acne-prone skins produce less linoleic acid, which leads the skin to become more sticky with sebum and basically attract more dirt, more trapped dead skin cells, therefore becoming more inflamed. Grapeseed is both highly anti-inflammatory and helps with the linoleic acid that breaks up that sebum. And that's all of those things are in our deeply clarifying blemish spot treatment as well as our face oil. And
so
they
that would
really
be something that you would put directly on the skin as well.
Absolutely. You will put that on the skin. The spot treatment is actually a spot treatment. So you'll put it 2 to 3 times on the spot and massage it in.
Mm-hmm.
It's more concentrated in the essential oils to really break down the inflammation, to break down the bacterial overgrowth, to resurface skin.
Mm-hmm.
And deeply clarifying face oil is more of a maintenance oil if you find that your skin is generally a little bit more inflamed, either during certain trigger cycles like travel, as it tends to be for me,
mm-hmm.
or around your period, or generally going through a period in your life that that your skin is acting a certain way. I recommend using that as a maintenance oil.
And also it's not going to be as near as harsh and take quite the toll that other more chemical ridden products would.
And I think that's the thing that is most important to acknowledge, in that you want to work with your body, never
mm-hmm.
against it.
Speaking about finding that balance, if someone is experiencing where they feel that not only their body, but more so their skin is out of balance, what would you recommend to find, I guess, to take a step back, start from square one? How would you recommend someone do that to find that balance once again?
Great question. So there are maybe 2 distinct approaches that that would work. Mm-hmm. One is the Ayurvedic approach, of course. Mm-hmm. Ayurveda believes or guides that all of the universe is made up of 3 forces or constitutions, which is the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Mm-hmm. And Vata, Pitta, Kapha are independent constitutions that manifest themselves in our bodies with one dominant constitution, which is why when you study Ayurveda, the first thing people talk about is, are you a Vata, are you a Pitta, are you a Kapha, or a combination? And that is sort of obviously the more esoteric of the 2 approaches. But mm-hmm. as you start to understand that, you'll start to understand that 1 or 2 of your doshas might be out of balance. That if you're, for instance, if you're extremely anxious, skin is feeling dry, you're getting eczema, those are all Vata imbalances.
Okay.
Kapha imbalances tend to manifest more as depression, weight gain, oilier skin, blemishes, a certain lethargy. And Pitta imbalances show up more as heat-based imbalances in the body, like heartburn, like really angry looking acne, lots of redness, and without going into it, because it's a beautiful but as I mentioned, slightly dense topic. Mm-hmm. The Ayurvedic approach would be to understand some of your doshic imbalances and start to either do or rather do all of the above, which is change your diet, change your yoga practices, change your meditation practices to balance some of those imbalances. Mm-hmm. More often than not, people go into it with a trigger-based approach, which would be the second, around what are you feeling the most of? Mm-hmm. That is where I would start even before I start with skincare. In that, if you're breaking out, take 1 step back and ask yourself, what in your mind or body has changed emotionally? That's where typically the cue lies. And if you're feeling more lethargic, mm-hmm. then there are chances that you will probably have more oil-based imbalances in your skin, and leading to things like a greater acne, greater clogging, things like that. And that's mm-hmm. the issues you want to address first, and those would sort of show up in thyroid issues and so on. If you're feeling drier, as I mentioned, eczema prone, mm-hmm. those are chances that are manifesting as anxiety. And I would almost start addressing things like those emotional imbalances first and foremost in the body,
Mm-hmm.
and then taking skincare as a secondary step, because very often skincare becomes a band-aid solution
Mm-hmm.
to the bodily and the emotional imbalances that might be leading to poorer sleep and so on.
I find that also a lot of people forget that whatever you're eating, or maybe you're lacking in water consumption, that shows up immediately. I noticed that the next day, if I didn't hydrate properly, that shows up the next day. You know, something so simple that I think people often forget is just merely, you know, have you consumed enough water today?
Things I maintain you should always do is SPF
Mm-hmm.
and facial massages. That those are things that immediately revitalize skin.
Mm-hmm.
Things like adding an ice roller or even icing your skin immediately revitalize skin. Masking immediately revitalizes skin. So
Mm-hmm.
those are 3 or 4 go-tos when I am really struggling,
Mm-hmm.
to sort of get the benefits of the everything that I have taken off, from my, let's say, 15 skincare products that are going in and out of rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the basics of cleansing, exfoliation, hydration, and nutrition, SPF, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and then using these burst things like facial massages, facial tools, ice rollers, and masking usually reset the process for me.
That's fantastic advice. I'm sure a lot of people are going to benefit from that.
Thank you.
Sometimes the simple way is the better way to start.
It is, in part because if you're doing 20 things, you've kind of lost track of which of those 20 is working the hardest for you, and
Mm-hmm.
B, not everything agrees with our skin because of our individual constitutions. And repeatedly putting that on your skin and compromising its barrier day after day after day means that you might be setting yourself up for acne or dermatitis or extreme sensitivity. So yeah.
In the long run. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other wisdom or knowledge that you would like to impart? Because we have 7 minutes.
I think we've covered a lot of what I think we'd set out to.
Mm-hmm.
While products are always fun things, and I'm at the helm of a product company, but I always treat products as a thing of A, indulgence,
Mm-hmm.
and B, a little bit of medicine slash fixers.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I love products because they bring me joy. I love the idea of putting an Uma body oil on myself after a shower or using an Uma facial massage. But I want to acknowledge that diet, lifestyle, health, and listening to your body are the necessary fundamentals to living the best life possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you can do one thing, or you can do 20, but you owe yourself that exploration about what are those 1 or 20 things that you might do, especially in this time that we have all this downtime,
Mm-hmm.
to live the best life possible. And I think that as an Ayurvedic, that is a charter I want to leave people with, that Ayurveda belongs to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that is elite and needs a gateway. So all of us could be practicing it with or without Uma products. And that is one thing that I want to leave people with.
And I think that your, even your how-tos of creating just simple masks, even at home, are great ways for those who aren't aware to kind of enter into Ayurveda and all that it entails. And like you were saying before, it is a very, it's not a soft topic. There's a lot of information and knowledge there. And, thanks to the internet, it's very easy to be able to go through and inform yourself. But I wanted to say a huge thank you, and I hope that you have a wonderful day and a really positive time navigating this great change, coming out better than ever.
Thank you. It was such a great opportunity. I appreciate the time you put into making all of this happen, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Shrankla.
Thanks, guys. Yes. No worries. It's almost there.
Perfect. I'll work on it. Thank you.